Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dijana, and you are now watching Nova Holistic podcast, and we're up to episode 19. Can you believe it? So, what I wanted to do first of all is welcome you and also let you know a little bit about this particular podcast. So, Nova Holistic, I created Nova Holistic specifically really to introduce and tell stories around holistic health and well-being. And when I talk about holistic health and well-being, specifically what I'm referring to is aspects of mental health and well-being, emotional health and well-being, physical health and well-being, and spiritual health and well-being. So today I have a beautiful guest, a lady who lives in Canada. Her name is Alka Chopra, and she is a registered dietitian and works in that really beautiful holistic way. But let me introduce you to her first and bring her online, let her join this podcast, and then we will unpack her beautiful story. Hi, Elka. Welcome to Nova Holistic.
Thank you so much, Diana. So lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. Just for you guys, if you didn't know, Alka is such an angel. She has agreed to be on this podcast, but it's 10 p.m. where she is. It's so late. I'm so impressed that you have made the effort to be here with us.
No,
So
it's
thank you.
it's an important topic, and any time is the best time to talk about it.
Well said. Blessings to you for that. Thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned just before, you're a registered dietitian by
Mhm,
profession, and you also work holistically. As I was reading, like checking out your website, and I was reading your bio,
mhm.
I I was really so struck by your wording of how when you work with so many people, um, this aspect of self care has been like a primary um, thing or ingredient that is missing in people's lives.
Yeah.
Let's start there and then sort of unpack the story a little bit more as we go along. I would love it for you to talk to us a little bit about how you've observed this to be in your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I look at self care, right? Self care, like when you and me were just quickly chatting before we started the show, we
Mm,
were talking about self care being an overused word,
mm,
right? You hear about self care, and a lot of people will attach very fancy things like spending hours and dollars at the spa, or going on destination vacations and going to retreats and all these things. So a lot of people, and I'm going to say most people, if you ask them this question, and that's what happened with me, that when I asked them, I said, do you have a routine that is just geared towards you? And they would look at me like, I have no time. Most people would
mm,
say, oh no, I have no time. I've got family, I've got kids, I've got a full-time job, and whatever. But what most people don't realize is that when we are talking about self-care, or let's call it me time, the preferred word for me is me time.
mm-hmm,
It doesn't have to be hours long. It doesn't have to be, dollar heavy. It can be something very, very little, very, very small. Now, as a child, especially during my teen years, I remember that I used to do lots of arts and crafts, and that used to make me feel really, really happy. Really, and I remember, I think it was probably in grade 9 or 10, probably. I don't, but distinctly remember, an assignment that was given to us, and in that assignment we had to make like a night sky. And I don't know how much time I spent in making that double spread,
Uh-huh.
I kept that for so long. I used so much color and, some silver paper and things like that. So many things in there that it came out beautiful, and it was
Hmm.
such a joy to work with. So since then, it's been like color, paper, all these things have been part of my own me time system. Like, it's almost like a system. And
Hmm.
so, of course, and then, life goes on and you get busy with your education, get married, have children. So even when my children were young, I used to do spend quite some time in arts and crafts, and I used to really enjoy it.
Hmm.
And then as you grow older, now my kids are older, so I have a lot of time on my hand. And then way back in when I started working in diabetes in like 2009,
Hmm.
as a dietitian, this was a very common question that I used to ask them. This thing, talk to me about your routine. What's your daily routine like? And the daily routine was almost like literally cooking, looking after children, going to work, coming back, and doing, daily chores. So that me time concept was something which was literally missing. And that's where it started becoming so much evident for me that people need more education around that. Not more, okay, not even education, it's more about awareness. It goes into the mindful concept. The term mindful is such a fancy word these days. Everyone talks about, oh, I need to live a mindful life, I need to eat mindfully. But do you know the meaning of mindful?
Yeah, in my experience, also people know the word, but they don't understand it and they don't
Yeah,
embody the
yeah.
meaning. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all very superficial, and all these
Yeah.
things, like me time, self-care, wellness, mindfulness, all these things are very interrelated, and they
Hmm.
cannot exist in silos.
Mm.
You can't do it. So, and then also the other big piece of this whole thing is like the name of your podcast, like Nova Holistic. So the term holistic has many layers to it.
Yes.
It's almost, I like to call it almost like an iceberg. The iceberg, you see just the top piece, and the iceberg is way deeper at the
Hmm.
bottom. So
Hmm.
that's the whole holistic piece that comes into picture, where I talk to my patients about the pillars of wellness. That's your physical, mental, emotional, psychological, and there's eight of them. And there's
Hmm.
all, if you go to my website, you'll find like all that information over there.
It's
So
actually in your bio, so I've included
it's
that
in my
because it's
bio as well.
something that,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's something that I'm curious about that I'll talk to you about later. Yeah.
Yeah. So therefore, you have to really think about health, and being a dietitian. Most people will come to me, okay, give me a meal plan, and I'll follow it. And I never give out meal plans because they
Mm.
don't work.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
I say you say the way I am a South Asian, the way I have been brought up, and my eating habits are very different from your eating habits, right?
Yeah.
So if I give you a plan which is like, okay, it works for me, but will it work for Deanna? Probably not, because it
Yeah.
doesn't blend with your eating style, with your living
Yeah.
style, with
Mhm.
your preferences, right? So there's no right or wrong answer. Now,
Mhm.
behind that meal planning wall, there's so many other factors that go into it. When we talk about factors affecting meal planning or menu planning, whatever you call it, there's there's knowledge and skills of how much do you know about cooking,
Mhm.
and finances, availability, and preferences, and availability to the closest grocery store. So many things, maybe the family composition. So there's so many things that are linked with that. So even
Yeah.
that is part of these of the wellness concept, the holistic concept. And the other big thing is, number one is a willingness to prepare, to cook. Most people, they are not, most people, they are like, give me something I can cook in 5 minutes. Well, you need a little bit more time than that. So bottom line is that there is, and if there is something happening in the background, of a person, there's something happening in their life, then cooking is oftentimes sidelined, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's where so I often will talk to my patients also, thinking about health beyond nutrition. Yes, nutrition, it needs to be easy to be done, but you need to think about your whole health in the wellness wheel. So if you Google wellness wheel, you'll come up with a lot of information, which really are the wellness pillars that I was mentioning to you, which you have in
Yeah.
mind, the 8 pillars of wellness. So there's
Mm-hmm.
so many things. It's a very complicated concept. Yet, if you really put your mind and be mindful of practicing it, it is possible. Things can be
Mm-hmm.
done, things can be changed, and that's where the creativity piece comes in. Then again, there's mental blocks around that too. Oh, I am not creative at all. Creativity is almost attached with painting, color, all those things, but there's so many other things that you can get by being creative. Like you are being creative creating this podcast. It's a
Mm-hmm.
concept.
That's right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's really interesting, and in terms of just speaking to the layers that you refer to, like behind the wall of nutrition, like because of me and my profession, it's like the behind the wall of mental health. What
right.
else is there that affects a person? And
Everything
of
is
course,
here.
everything is connected.
Yes.
All those aspects are interconnected and
Correct.
not separate from each other. But
Yes.
it's really interesting when it comes to this creative piece. In society in general, we have been conditioned to value intellectual maturity and academic success, which are all left brain achievements, so much that we shut down those parts of ourselves that
Right.
free think, that create, that where we
Right.
allow ourselves to just imagine and get lost in a
Mhm.
world that we could then potentially manifest, which are all those quantum physics aspects
Correct.
that speaks to those
Yeah.
spiritual parts of us then, right?
Yes.
So it's not the point I'm trying to make in a very roundabout way is that it's not like you were saying layers. It's not just a person's life, it's also children, it's family, it's partners, and then it's social,
It is
like the
huge.
bigger picture. It's
Yes.
hugely social
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
when we are so heavily um, conditioned to more towards one part of who we are rather than all, like
Right.
whole of
Yes.
us. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
100%.
hmm, yeah,
Yeah. And that's where a lot of people struggle with that. You know what? Okay, if I start eating better, my life will get better. Well, not really. Even if you start
mm,
eating better, and if you have not worked through the mental health aspects, it does not, that mental peace is not there.
yeah, yeah,
Mental
yeah.
peace is something, yeah, in India, because I was born and brought up in India.
Hmm.
Well, I can't say the saying in Hindi because no one's going to understand. But what what the meaning of the saying really is, that even the food that you eat will work in your body if your brain health is good, if your mental health is
Hmm.
good. That
That's
that is that is
exactly.
the underlying theme of it.
Mm. You
Uh,
know, I have a personal experience around this for myself in that. So
mhm.
When I was in my early 20s, I became a vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't aware of the whole vegan thing at the time. I mean, I'm 50 years old now, like 30 years ago, the world was different, right?
Yes.
And so, but I was vegetarian. And part of the reason why I turned to being a vegetarian was because I had already studied meditation and pranic healing for a couple of years. And, I was feeling like being a vegetarian was the thing to do. But what I ended up doing, unbeknownst, is that instead of making, because I just stopped eating meat,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't consider other aspects of, because I didn't
Mm.
have the education or
Right.
anything like that. What I ended up doing is I ended up creating a really acidic pH within my body.
Mm-hmm.
And it had over time really adverse effects on my body, actually. One of them being is that I became anemic without realizing that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so when I tried to fall pregnant later on in my life, it was one of the first things that I had to sort out. I
Mm-hmm.
went to a naturopath, and I worked with a naturopath and a dietitian together,
Mm-hmm.
um, to to um, uh, to correct my internal environment so
Mm-hmm.
that my body can sustain a pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Because it didn't matter how good I was eating, the fact that my gut was acidic, I
Yeah.
wasn't absorbing any of the nutrients.
There was an imbalance, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so
And that,
it's, yeah,
yeah.
sorry. Go.
No, no. So I was just going to say, like, what you are saying, because you do not have the full information. When people are young, the body is, you have more energy, and everything is, it's different, right? When you are, say, up to
Mhm.
the age of 30, I'm going to say it, but the body begins to decline. I mean, well, there is aging. Aging starts to happen as soon as you're born, right?
Yeah.
So it happened. But yes, aging, the percentage, it increases after the age of 40, 50. It's more on the decline over there. But the thing is that young girls, they don't understand. That's what they don't understand. Like all these starvation diets and all these things, all these things have a very strong impact on your relationship with food and your own mental health too.
Mm,
And then it all these things then go on, and they actually impact the entire family. There's
mhm,
so much research around there that moms who are picky eaters have children who are picky eaters. I
mm.
see it in my own family. Like, I'm not a picky eater, but I've seen it in my extended family.
Yeah.
So it's so the mental health like really comes into picture in all aspects that you do, right? How
Yes.
you envision things, how you are able to get that balance, and it takes work, it takes
Mhm,
effort, it takes
mhm,
awareness, and more than anything, all this, it takes mindfulness of
mhm,
being aware of what is really going on in my life. You can't
mhm.
just, it's not, life is not a blackboard where you just take a duster and just wipe it off. You can't do that. And then the blackboard is all nice and fresh. Exactly. I wish it was like that, but that's not how it is. So
No, not quite.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
So when I'm sometimes talking to my patients, especially the younger generation, if somebody who's less than 20,
Mhm,
I will almost always mention it to them. Whatever you are doing to your body till age 18, till age 20, that's what your body is going to be when you are 50 or 60. So
mhm,
you need to invest. And when I'm talking the body, I'm talking of your physical health, I'm talking of your mental health, I'm talking spiritual health, financial, emotional, environmental, and there's one more I forget. So those in short, those are the pillars.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So then, when you talk about, up to the age of 20, those um, uh, uh, initial sort of those young years, right? The teens, yeah, the childhood and teen
Yeah.
years are sort of almost, we could perhaps say, the blueprint of health for later on in life.
Yes.
It's sort of what I'm hearing you
Perfect
say.
word, blueprint, 100. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that fits it
So
so
if
well.
that's the case, then other than our family environment,
Mm-hmm.
and this is just I'm just curious to see what you think about this.
Mm-hmm.
What role does our education system then play to help us be to our fullest potential?
Yeah, huge,
Hmm.
huge.
Are
Education.
they getting there?
No, and that's
Oh,
the issue, right? They're not getting it. So
yeah.
education plays a huge role. So if you were to ask me now, you are in Australia, so I don't know the education system there, but here in North America,
Mhm.
home economics in grade till high school is it's not it's one of those, it's not a core course, right? It's like an
It's
elective.
an elective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
Same, by the
yeah,
way.
in my
Mm.
understanding, and
Mm.
some people might say it might be a bias. However, having experience, having been in the health field for so long now, probably 30 years or so, uh, this is my personal opinion that it should be actually a core course
Mm.
for everybody.
Mm.
Everyone should know how to cook. Everyone
Mm.
should know how to look after themselves,
Mhm.
and now the syllabus of home economics has probably evolved over the years and their mind things like mindfulness and all these things need to be taught to children. I think somewhere in Japan, I think in kindergarten, children actually do meditation in class.
Mm.
In
Yeah.
kindergarten,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So when I'm sometimes when when I'm talking to my patients and I'm asking them, can you do some meditation? And usually the straight up answer is no. I tried it. It does not work for me. My brain gets active when I meditate. Of course, your brain will get active. You're not a dead person, you're an alive person, right? So your thoughts will come to you. And the reality is that when you are meditating, when you're in stillness, the thoughts to become active. At night time, why do thoughts become more active when you're in bed? Because there is so much
Yes.
stillness.
Yeah.
You're not
Hmm.
doing anything. All you're doing is focusing. And that is the magic of meditation,
Yes.
where you are really learning on how to focus and refocus and how to balance. So I like to call thoughts as waves, in a sea or ocean, the waves.
Hmm.
So you have to keep doing it over and over again. So when I'm teaching meditation to people to balance their lives, and is obviously deep breathing is something, the eight by eight or 4 by 4 or the square breathing that they call it, like
Hmm.
4 breaths in, 4 breaths out.
Hmm.
So when you do that, that's one part. The other part is that I'll say to them, okay, you know what, when you're breathing, see, even when you're lying in bed, think you might be having a clock which is in your view. So keep looking at the clock, and if you wander here and there, then focus back, or maybe the tip of your nose, or maybe the middle of the eyebrows. So, and then you that what that does is that focus that brings back your breath. You're focusing on the breath and you're bringing it back over here. And the more you practice doing it, the better you will get at it. And
Hmm.
that will bring in a lot of calmness. And this is something that I have experienced myself. Like a few years ago, I went through there was a lot of stress happening in my own job, and I had to ultimately quit after like 7 years in that job. It was just too much. And it was meditation that helped me come out of it and start.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
so these the the stage at which I am today is a lot to do. Even now, I meditate. It's not as much as I used to before, but I try my best to do it like every other day for, I mean, just 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You don't have to be like hours, and that's what most people will think, and that is
So
not.
when I teach my clients and I talk to my clients about meditation, um, I I talk about, so as you know, there's like hundreds of different ways to meditate, but
Oh yeah,
ultimately, um, with meditation comes that piece of self mastery.
yes,
Self mastery being when you have a good relationship within yourself, your body will tell you, your mind will tell you, your emotional body will tell you what you need every day.
right.
And at the very least,
Mm-hmm.
that 4x4 practice can be what? That's a total of what? 20 to 25 seconds.
Seconds,
You
yes,
can't tell me that you haven't got 25 seconds in your day. I mean,
100%.
seriously, you can do that. And please excuse me, but you can do that while you're in the shower or sitting on the toilet. Like you
Exactly.
sit, like there's no excuse. There is
Yeah.
no excuse. But
Yes.
what that does, exactly what you say, brings your focus back. It allows for a greater intake of oxygen. It
Mm-hmm.
grounds your energy. You can center yourself
Yeah.
quickly. And it's an amazing practice to
It's an
just
amazing
have.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
where the creativity piece also comes in, that you be creative in doing many, many things, For example, right now when I'm sitting, I just took off my slippers and my feet are touching the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one form of grounding, right?
It's a
You're
form of
watching
grounding.
you're watching the TV or something. There's a commercial. You can just put back your body, rest a little bit, and you can do that meditation piece in between. So that's where the
Mm-hmm.
creativity piece also comes into picture, as well, because creativity has almost been equated to problem solving, because
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an incident that happened a few years ago. I was teaching about self management. I was doing a workshop on self management there were a group of 15 men who were having custody battles for their children. So the
Oh,
law,
wow.
yeah. So the law, also the rules that we had here, it required that they go over some courses, so that they would be allowed to meet their children and all the. So one of the course included stress management, and even nutrition was one of the courses as well. So I was teaching both of them. So as part of the self management activity, what I told them, I gave an activity to the to the fathers. I just gave them grid paper, any grid paper, and I had crayons from the dollar store. So I said to them, okay, you know what, just take any color and just draw any shape on the grid paper,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, whether you like a tree, flower, sun, moon, star, whatever. It can just be a simple circle, it can be a square, whatever you want. And then what I want you to do after that is, once you have the outline, I want you to color each small grid in different colors. And they literally looked at me like I came from outer space. They said, we have never even picked up a crayon in our life. We can't
Mm-hmm.
do this. I said, okay, give it a try. So I just turned on some music, YouTube music in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, just take 15 minutes. That's all we're going to do. I'm not giving you more time, 15, because I don't have more time than that. But just give it a shot. So initially there was a lot of hesitation and resistance that, oh no, we cannot do coloring. And so, Deanna, by the time it was like 2 to 3 minutes in, not a single father raised their head. They were so engrossed in coloring, and some of them were actually trying to color in between those squares so that the color doesn't go outside the lines. And some
Mm.
of them, I still remember one of the father, he drew a tree. So he actually drew the bark in that brown, different shades of brown, and then the tree in green. It was in
Wow.
15 minutes. right? And so after 15 minutes, I had to literally ask them. I said, you know what, I have to finish this session. So we got to stop, but you're welcome to take the colors that you used and whatever we had, we shared those and the paper, and go home and try this. It doesn't cost you much. I'm sure you can take out 15 minutes of your time
Mm,
in a day, which are exclusively for yourself.
mm,
Right? And we did a little bit of deep breathing in the beginning before we started as well. So it
yeah.
was just, and when they left, said, "Okay, this was like a magical experience, an experience that they have never experienced or even thought of before." That is where
Mm,
the magic of creativity, comes in. For when you are drawing a painting, when you're making a painting, something goes wrong. There's no need to panic. You want to try to figure out, how can I fix this? The same thing is with problem solving, right?
I want to ask you a question here. Sorry about the interruption, but I can really appreciate what you're talking about. But I'm thinking in terms of the audience that's not doing this sort of work. So,
Yes.
someone that is listening to you and me talk and they're going, well, what's the point of coloring in squares? Explain what the point is from a health and well-being perspective.
So when you're coloring in those small squares, right, you are trying to maybe match up some colors. For example, you may be having a design, and you're trying to match up things. You're trying different combinations, right? So think about this: that if you have a problem in life, we get sometimes stuck in that vicious circle, and we keep going round and round in that. Now, to break that, you've got to break something, right? If the circle is going round and you've got to break loose.
Like a pattern interrupt.
Exactly. So if
Right.
you want to do that, if you want to bring in a different effect, if you're doing different shades in a
Hmm.
tree bark, or in the main tree, you've got to break that pattern,
Hmm.
right? So it really forces you to think beyond the box.
The norm. Yeah. Hmm.
You can,
Absolutely.
with color and paint, you can experiment with so many things, and you sort of start to think, okay, if I made a mistake here in this, how can I fix this? How can I
Hmm.
fix this? If I wanted to use a dark green here, but I wanted to use a light green over here, but I used a dark green, how do I fix
Hmm.
this? So you are
Hmm.
thinking a bit beyond the box. So you
Hmm.
might have to change the pattern. You might think, okay, what if I take some white and just put on top of it? It'll lighten the
Hmm.
color. You can lighten it, or
Hmm.
I can change the pattern, right? So
Hmm.
it's the same
Hmm.
thing that you have to. So it also goes back into the triggers. When I talk to many patients about mindful eating, so we talk about eating triggers. And the same thing applies to life as well. And that if something is triggering you to get angry, how can you stay away from that? That's where the problem solving piece comes in. So
Hmm.
creativity has so many benefits, but again, the main and the underlying theme is that you've got to, number one, embrace creativity. So I call that
Hmm.
embrativity. So you're embracing creativity.
Nice.
So it's marriage of the two, right? So it's
Hmm.
and actually I'm coming up with a program on this as well, so that people, because you just mentioned that many people don't embrace creativity, because they think that I have no talent, I cannot even play with color and nothing like that.
Hmm.
They,
And going back to sort of what we talked about before, um, problem solving is most commonly associated with that analytical left side of the brain,
yes,
whereas creativity is right side of the brain. So by default, creativity requires also imagination,
yeah,
being able to tap into different parts of your brain, and so that's that pattern interrupt that you're talking about,
yeah,
right? And so it gives you an opportunity to see the same thing but from a different potentially a completely different perspective. It
Yeah.
allows you to explore different parts of your brain. And
Yeah.
also, you know what it's like when we are focusing on doing something, it brings our energy in, so we're less likely to be distracted by outside
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Yes.
So it helps
Exactly.
us
That's a really,
focus and
yeah,
yeah.
because you get so, and that is exactly what happened with these men, because
Mm.
they were so engrossed that none of them, those 15 men sitting in that room, none of them lifted their head.
Yeah, I love that.
It was such an
I love that.
interesting, yeah, interesting. It was a really big learning curve for me too, because I did
Mm.
not expect that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a book, it's called as The Artist's Way, and I was looking that up. It's by
Uh-huh.
Julia Cameron. It's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful book, and it also has a workbook, and also people who are listening, something that you can actually buy the book. So
I'm gonna
what?
write it down.
Yeah, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. So the whole the whole book is actually all around how you can do, uh, how an artist creates a painting, and how even you can do it, like how you can be an who how a person who thinks that they are not an artist can become an artist,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can be an artist of living a good life.
Mm.
Artist
Yes.
does not mean that you've got to be a painter or a sculptor. No.
No, not at all. Not at
Exactly.
all.
When you
Yeah.
go for a game of golf, for example, there's strategy around it, or chess. Even that is also in a way, that is a chess artist or a golf artist, because they are trying to find a way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really, so that's where creativity and artistry, all these things are, they are so much deeper. The term artist has been used, I'm saying with a bias, I'll say, mostly for people who paint. And so there's still, like here in Canada, I'm a member of one of the groups here, a group of artists. So there's a constant battle actually going on, and a lot of discussion going on in that group, that who is an artist? Is only a watercolor painter or an oil painter or an acrylic painter an artist? No.
Wow.
Somebody who makes, yes, so that is a traditional way of thinking,
Mm.
right? So but the non-traditional way of thinking, the modern way of thinking, is it's changing. Even a fashion designer is an artist too,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? Somebody
Mm-hmm.
who does weaving is an artist also. Now when you're
Mm-hmm.
doing weaving or something like that, like for example, I do wood burning, and I do jewelry making as well. So when I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
all these things, I'm trying to, so I sometimes, if I'm burning, I've made a mistake, I'm trying to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think out of the box ideas. So when people are
Mm-hmm.
involved in any kind of creativity, any kind of creative act, and there's so many things that you can do. It just prepares you. I think it makes you much more a balanced person, and you are
Mm.
more equipped to fight, life's problems, and
Mm-hmm.
get over them, come up with problems, and come up with solutions, viable
Mm-hmm.
solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I talk to my clients about has to do with a combination of um, it's about manifesting well-being and
Yes.
their true essence into their everyday lives. What
Mm-hmm.
I find that people often don't think about how to wear their home on the sleeve, meaning, so, like for example, I might do a guided meditation around, think about a really happy event like your wedding or the birth of your child or a great holiday or
Mm-hmm.
a fantastic party, right?
Right.
And then I'll say to them, like, do you have um, somewhere in your home, memories of that joyful time
Mm-hmm.
somewhere represented somewhere in your home.
Right.
And 9.9% of the time out of 10, people will say no.
No.
And I'll say, okay, use the opportunity, identify the things that make your heart sing
Mm-hmm.
and bring you joy, which then speaks to well-being,
Right.
including color and color therapy, which
Correct.
is
Yes.
part of what you're talking
Yes. Yes.
about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's part of art therapy as well.
Right.
Bring that into your home. Dig out some pictures and put them up on your wall, on your fridge, or whatever. So it doesn't matter what's going on in your day. Everywhere you look in your home,
Mm-hmm.
your joy, your heart and mind is represented in your environment. It's
Yes.
such an easy, but that again speaks to that creativity piece, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So all
Yeah.
of those things, people can literally become their own Van Gogh in their
Oh,
lives,
for
in their
sure.
homes,
Yeah.
right?
You feel what you see.
Mm,
If you
yes.
have beautiful pictures around you, again, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You
No.
can get really cheap ones. You can make
Mm.
your own. Just
Create an
create.
environment
Yes.
that reminds you where you
Yeah.
literally, like, you are being nurtured in that multi-sensory
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
but in all the best ways, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it's really fantastic. But here's something that I've seen, right, that I want to ask you about
Mhm.
as well. What I see when I talk to people, because you and I talk about sort of similar things in essence, right? So
Yeah.
our, like, we're in seemingly in different professions, but we both appreciate that holistic approach and understand that it's
Hmm.
vital
Right.
to health and well-being, right? When I talk to people about, that 25 seconds, like, you have to invest in yourself
Hmm.
in order to arrive at
Hmm.
a lifestyle that nourishes and nurtures you, right?
Yes.
What I come up against, which is that I don't have time, is that people don't actually value investing into themselves. So it's a
For sure.
self-worth thing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Why, Alka, why don't we talk about this self-worth
Right. Yeah.
piece, you
Yeah.
know? Why are we telling people? I mean, on TV, we are bombarded with how important it is to invest in your insurance for the car, for your house,
Yeah.
for your, I don't know, for your,
Vacation, all this vacation.
just any, like,
Like
the,
you
like,
spend, yeah, people spend months planning out vacations,
why
getting the
don't
best deal.
we,
Yeah, yeah. I
right?
think,
Why
yeah,
don't we teach
for
people that they
sure.
have to?
Yeah,
They have to
yeah.
invest into themselves,
Selves, yeah. A lot of
right?
people do have the thought, that self care is a waste of time. A
Mm,
lot of people don't do it out of guilt that, if they invest too much time for themselves, they're doing a
mm.
disservice to the others. Or if
It's
my
selfish.
yeah,
Yeah.
if that if I spend some time for me, maybe going for a doing whatever self-care activity that I want
Mm,
to do, it is I am not a good mom, and this is more so in women than in men, unfortunately.
yeah.
So these I think these are the thoughts, and I think the way society is structured right now, that's also another thing, where it's always children before self, a spouse before self, so and
Mm,
sometimes, and again, not to undermine the importance of self-care for men, it is equally important whether you're a man or a woman. There are
mm-hmm,
single dads, there are single moms, right? So and I understand the pressure of taking care of the children and the family, whatever the needs are, is high. And COVID has not made it easier. In fact, with things being so expensive, things have changed, life has changed. But what I have found post COVID, now people are beginning to realize that there are lots of studies coming up that people are beginning to realize how much they have neglected themselves. Like the 2.5 years the world was ready to
Mm,
shut down, at the time people have
mm,
really realized when they started spending time with themselves, with the family. There were interestingly, there were so many divorces that happened during the COVID time because people did not know how to work together. Couples, they did not know how to talk to each other. People are spending more time with this device than people, right? So that concept, there's more realization that
mm,
has been there, and I really hope it continues. Well, now the world is coming back to normal, but that realization is there. And it's almost like, I talk a lot about napping with my patients, and there's one particular patient, this was just like 2 weeks ago. She was in my office, and I said to her, I said, okay, what are your thoughts about napping? She started laughing at me. I said, no. She said, are you joking? I said, no, I'm not. I really want you to nap for 15 minutes. And when I'm saying napping, I'm not saying just, put on your warm clothes and close the blinds and in a dark room and put on a comforter and just go to sleep for 2 hours. That's not what I'm saying. Because napping is something which is such a impactful self-care strategy, and that is again the creativity piece comes in again. Think what your body needs. And
mm,
she said, no, Alka, I can't do this. I said, okay, you do this for me. If not for yourself, do it for me. Just because I am saying so, I am your dietitian, do it for me.
mm,
And she said, okay, I'll try it. So she said, then she went back home. And then the following week, I called her. I said, did you try it? She said, yeah, but I went off to sleep. I said, how long did you sleep? She said 1 hour. I said, okay. And how did you feel after you woke up? Well, I could not sleep at night. I said, yeah, that is because you slept for 1 hour. Napping is not 1 hour. I said, give me what did you do to the room? Well, I closed the blinds and I was very comfortable on my couch. I said, okay, no, don't close the blinds. It's only put on a timer, 15 minutes it is. And you are just closing, you don't have to sleep. Napping is just you're relaxing your body, because an
mm,
overtired body and an overtired mind at night also cannot sleep.
mm,
Your body
mhm,
has to be relaxed. Your body temperature has to be at a certain temperature. If my feet are cold when I'm going to sleep, I cannot sleep till my body has warmed up. So the same thing goes with your brain and your body as well, that unless your body is relaxed, you are not able to sleep. And going
mm,
back to, again, to the self-care piece, like how do you and there are so many patients of mine who started napping in the afternoon, and they're able to sleep better at night. If you sleep better at
mhm,
night, you're able to wake up fresh in the morning. So it's
mhm,
a cycle, that whole cycle that continues. Yeah. That's where
mm,
all these creativity pieces come into picture. Think outside the box. And if you don't know what to do, ask for help.
mhm.
There is help
Yeah.
around everyone.
So, two things. Number one, I'm an expert sleeper. I love sleeping. I have no problem sleeping.
That's
So,
great.
I love what you say, and I love that you talk about napping because there's not very many people that actually
No.
consider napping as a self-care strategy. It's
Yes.
really good. I really love what you say here. Really love it. That's completely kind of new in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
conversations I've had. So I really love that. Thank you for that. But just going back to what you said, if you're not sure what to do, ask. So here's what I'm noticing, right? I'm noticing that when I promote myself
Mm-hmm.
as a counselor, for example, right? People don't think to ask me or talk to me about holistic health and well-being because they relate counseling specifically just to mental health, right?
Yes.
When you say registered dietitian, I imagine people then just, broadly
Yeah.
think of you only
Food.
in terms of food,
Yes.
right? And so, what I love that you do, and I do as well, is in my title, I describe myself as a health and well-being advocate, and you do the same thing, right? Or
Mhm.
similar.
Yeah.
And so, I wonder whether people like you and me actually need to educate the
Yes.
collective consciousness about um, uh, I don't know, maybe that holistic health and well-being is part of what professionals like you and I do
Mm-hmm.
in some
Do
way,
or
right?
should do, because there are so many people, there are so many dietitians like
Mm,
myself who don't talk about this. They just talk about straight on food, right? A
yeah.
classic example I'll give you is that when people will come to me and they say, okay, when I get home, I start cooking dinner right away. I come home at
Mm-hmm.
6 o'clock from work and I'm straight into the kitchen. I
Mm-hmm.
said, then I will say to them, okay, walk me through, what do you cook? She said, then they'll say, oh, you know what, I'm so tired and I just I just put, say, chicken wings in the oven because I would just want to get it over with. Okay,
Mm,
let's break that. How about you
mm.
come, what is going to happen if dinner is not ready by 7 and you eat dinner at 7:15? Will the earth come to an end? What will happen? Tell me. What is the worst that can happen? We say, nothing. Okay, so how about when you come home, take off your shoes, sit down, make a cup of tea, have a cup of tea, sit down. If you don't want to have tea, that's totally okay, because but generally tea is relaxing. You just have sitting some
Mm,
time and nap for 15 minutes. And you can start
mm,
preparing your meal at 6:15, 6:20, whatever the time is. What is the worst will happen? Oh yeah, that is right. I will have more energy. Immediately the thought process changes, and it's so interesting to see them, their eyes light up. Oh yeah, I'll have more energy, and I can
mm,
focus a bit more on getting meals on the table.
mm.
This is
Good quality meals,
exactly.
nutritional meals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you're not just throwing in chicken wings and well, I don't fry them, I just bake them. Well, they're already fried, and you should not be chicken eating chicken wings every day in any case.
Yeah.
Right? You might be better off making a soup,
Mm,
right? So it's so there's like and again, bringing back the creativity piece. So these are things that you can start to think about. And what I
mm,
almost find is that when I will have people do a creative activity, in like when I'm saying creative, it means color and paint and something like that, invest in that. It almost opens up their world so much,
mhm.
because they're able to apply those principles
Yes.
in real life.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, because they're tapping into a potential that they've that's been dismissed for a
Right.
long time. Yeah. So, meaning a potential within themselves. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, let's hope, Alka, that there's more and more people, more professionals that have to do with any aspect of health and well-being that actually approach their work with wholeness in mind. I
Yes.
really hope that we continue to change that because it's really important.
It is important. Yeah. I mean, you
Mm,
now I don't know how many lives one lives, but there is a saying, we live only once.
mm,
So might as well, it's in your hand. The way you live and the way you frame your life, when you have a wall picture, you want to frame it in the best kind of frame. The same thing, the way
mm,
you frame your life,
mm.
the way you design your life is actually entirely in your hands.
Yeah, because look, throughout my many years of studying meditation and meditation sort of approaches and things like that, whenever I used to get stuck on this idea of Okay, I understand reincarnation. I believe that that the soul is infinite and reincarnates into a
Mm-hmm.
body over and over again in order for the soul to ascend, etc. However, if that is the case, why the saying there's only one life? And I think I've come to sort of make peace and reconcile the idea,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't matter even if I've lived 100 lifetimes. I'm in this lifetime now. So therefore, this is the one that's most important.
Yeah.
And I
Focusing on the
want to
present.
make sure that's right. So
Yes.
this one right now,
Yeah.
right here, right now.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mm,
that is being
yeah.
aware and mindfulness. It's there is no value or there's no benefit in throwing around terms, to, oh, it's, yeah, living a mindful life, but do you even know what it means? Do you know what the real meaning is? So we
Mm,
just at work we just wrapped up a mindful eating program. It was a 6-week program that we wrapped up, and I do it with my social worker at work. It was amazing, and we had 21 people sign up for that program. Out of that 21 people, only 6 showed up. Where are the remaining 15 people?
wow.
Right? So you sign up, but you don't show up. So that's
Mm.
a totally different thing, as also, showing up for yourself. That
That's just it, right? Why
exactly.
can't you show up for
For
yourself?
yourself,
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
yeah.
And it was
Mm.
so and by the time the last session happened, there were only 4 people towards the end. So it's
Wow.
just people are, yeah, they're not showing up for themselves and other things. Oh, what, this happened, all these things. Well, I don't know what to say. It is something that you have to really put your mind to it and be more. And in that entire, it was a mindful eating program. However, there was very little talking about food, interestingly. There was more
Mm.
talking about being mindful, your relationship with food, CBT. We talked a little bit about CBT also
Right.
in that, and triggers and things like that, which is the psychological backbone of food. Like food is, when there's so many functions of food,
Yeah.
with the mental and social being one of the most important. It's not just the nourishing piece; there is the nurturing piece as well involved in there. So obviously,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Oh my God, it's huge, isn't
it
it?
is huge. We
It's
could go on for five
huge.
hours on this.
Oh my God, seriously, because I can't believe we're already at an hour almost.
Yeah,
Alka, that's insane how quickly that hour has gone.
yeah,
And just to sort of speak to just I just want to say, for those that don't know, CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy,
yeah,
which is an aspect of it's like like an approach, a therapeutic approach
yeah.
that talks about how you think and behave
It's
around
mental
food.
well-being,
Like, yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay. And what was the other thing that I wanted to say? Out of my head. Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say, even for me, when I start with a new client, the first thing I talk about is, what is your sleep pattern? What about your hydration and your food? Because if people are not sleeping and they're dehydrated and they're not, if they're starving themselves or overeating, it's really difficult to receive information, new
Yes.
information. There's so, like, the head can be so cloudy
Yeah.
and so much dis-ease essentially that
Yes.
it's difficult to deal with any cognitive or behavioral stuff, to be
Exactly.
honest,
Yeah.
until
Cognition.
those
Yeah. For
foundational
sure.
things are sorted out.
100%.
Yeah.
The cognition is
Mm.
directly is to the link to the brain, right? And the
Yeah.
brain is the powerhouse. It's the head.
Yeah.
It's the head of the entire body, and you've got to keep it nourished and nurtured both.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So um, let me invite you to say any last words that you might have, and then we'll close
Yeah.
today's
Yeah.
podcast.
No.
This
Yeah.
unbelievable hour that's gone so quickly.
I
Oh
know
my
it's
God.
flown by. Yeah, yeah. I'm just going to say, just show up for yourself. That's
Mm,
all. That
yes.
is so important. Show up for yourself and really be aware of how you're leading your life and which direction you're going.
Mm,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, love that. I hope our audience is really hearing you in that message of show up for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
including, whether you want to talk about when you are considering showing up for yourself, considering or working through concepts such as self care, me time, self worth, however you want to frame it, essentially it doesn't matter. It really is working, giving yourself some time, some stillness to work out um, uh, you know, that first of all, you deserve to show up for yourself.
For sure. That's a good point.
Second, yeah, you deserve it,
Mm-hmm.
and then work out how you can show up for yourself so you can
Yeah.
begin to shift some of that
Yeah.
internal, health and well-being stuckness or
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
disease. Yeah,
And ask
for
for
sure.
help. If you need it,
Mm.
there
We're
is
here.
ask for it. Yeah, there is help around. If there is, like, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I hope I want to thank you again. Oh my gosh,
My
it's
pleasure.
11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock where you
Yeah,
are.
it
My
is
goodness,
11 o'clock. It's okay. Yeah,
again, thank you so much for showing up
it was
for
lovely chatting
us
with you. Yeah.
today. What I'm going to ask you to do is, can you just stay there?
Yeah,
I'm going to go to one screen again and just close the podcast and finish off, but just stay there so that
sure.
you and I can finish our
Not a
chat.
problem. Yeah.
Okay, so I won't be long.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my loves, I hope you enjoyed that. That extraordinary, yet again, another extraordinary episode of Nova Holistic, discussing aspects of holistic health and well-being. And isn't it so interesting that, again, Alka and I have, different professions, yet we meet and dance in the middle in terms of holistic health and well-being so beautifully together, and speak a very similar language and support you in those really important ways. I hope you have a lovely day, evening, um, breakfast, lunch, dinner, wherever you are in the world. And I will be seeing you really soon. And by the way, if you want to support the podcast, if you resonate with this message, I have in the show notes a little link to where you can donate to this podcast by buying us a coffee, something simple, something affordable, and much appreciated. On that note, bye bye, and much love to you all.